at oldwest.org, an article by Karen Harris entitled 10 Native American Mythical Creatures, from Thunderbirds to Skinwalkers, from the Sphinx of ancient Egypt to the dragons of China and the Minotaur of ancient Greece. One thing all cultures have in common are fantastical monsters. Legends of strange beasts and paranormal creatures come from all corners of the Earth's folklore, and Native American cultures are no exception. In fact, their mythologies are rich in powerful and fearsome animals that permeate their legends and oral tradition. Here are 10 of the most well-known and intriguing mythical creatures and monsters from Native American cultures and folklore. Let's skip the ones we've done already. Number 4, Andamkinowet. Native American cultures, like communities around the world, include tales of half-human, half-fish beasts that inhabit waterways. The Andamkinowet is the Algonquin version of the mermaid myth, or rather, it is a merman. All the myths and legends of this mythical creature describe the Andamkinowet as a male who likes pretty young women. The Andamkinowet, as the stories go, lurks in lakes, rivers, and streams, and accosts young women and girls when they remove their clothing to bathe. Sometimes it doesn't even bother the women. It merely watches as a woman swims nude and washes herself. Yeah, that's kind of creepy. In other legends, the creature takes its voyeurism a step too far by swimming unseen beneath the surface to molest an unsuspecting bather. The merman does not try to kill the women, but he certainly lives up to his reputation as the perverted merman. Atasea. We'll say Atasea. The Andamkinowet wasn't unique in North American mythology. Other mythical creatures stalked young women as well, according to Native American stories. One of these more fearsome creatures was the Atasea, described by the Zuni people of the Southwest as huge and demon-like, much larger than a normal human. The Atasea is covered in thick, knobby skin and long gray hair. It is muscular and scaly, with bulging red eyes. Numerous tales in the Zuni oral tradition describe the Atasea abducting and cannibalizing young women. As menacing as the Atasea was, however, most of the tales about this cannibalistic demon end in the creature's defeat. In one story, for example, the Atasea lured a couple of beautiful young girls back to his cave. He tried to trick the young maidens into sampling the soup he had been cooking. Soup made from human children he had abducted. When that did not work, he tried to convince the girls to comb his silver hair. The 2 girls were saved by the Zuni god of war, who killed the demon and rescued the maidens. They call that Deus Ex Machina, saved by the gods. The Taihihan and the Namirigar. Several Native American tribes include stories of races of little people called the Taihihan and the Namirigar and the Pukwudgies. According to legend, these were not cute, jolly, Disney-like dwarves. Instead, they were strong, fierce, and brutally warlike. In some myths, the little people were magical forest gnomes, while in others they were a fearsome foe. Taking its name from the Arapaho word for strong, the Taihihan were said to have made their homes on the plains of Wyoming and Colorado, where they could prey upon the Native American people also living there. The Namirigar, whose name means people-eaters, lived in the Pedro Mountains near the Wind River in Wyoming. Both groups of little people were described as being child-sized, incredibly aggressive, and cannibalistic. The dwarves would kidnap and devour children, kill livestock, and attack adult warriors with ease. They were equally brutal to their own kind. According to the stories, the Namiragar practiced a gruesome form of euthanasia by bashing in the skulls of their own members who had become injured, fallen ill, or had grown too old to be useful. Nearly all the myths surrounding these fierce little dwarves conclude with accounts of how Native American tribes banded together to wage an ancient battle against the Tahian. The little people were soundly defeated, the entire race exterminated. Although the tales of the Tahian and the Namiragar have long been considered as folk tales, there may be some evidence that the race of little people did once inhabit parts of the American West. Thank you, Johnny Pepperston, for the super chat. Johnny says, all this talk of owl people reminds me of when I was a kid, and other kids told stories about a man in black that would stand on the side of the highway at night. He had a face like an owl. Thank you, Johnny, for that chilling thought. There are eyewitness accounts from European explorers, most notably Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark expedition, to corroborate these legends. In 1932, the mummified remains of a fully grown adult, who was roughly 65 years old, was discovered in Wyoming. The remarkable thing about this mummy is that it is only about 14 inches tall. In addition, it was killed by a sharp blow to the cranium. The discovery of this mummy, dubbed the San Pedro Mountains mummy, seemed to provide some proof of the existence of the little people from Native American folklore. Since the discovery of this mummy, the remains of other ancient little people have been found. Perhaps there really was a race of fierce dwarves roaming the Old West. Next we have Ogopoga and the Flathead Lake Monster. Look at that beautiful black and white. The Loch Ness Monster gets all the attention. But according to Native American myth and folklore, there are strange unidentified sea serpents living in some of the larger lakes of North America. Ogopoga in British Columbia and the Flathead Lake Monster in Montana are two such creatures. The depths of Okanagan Lake in British Columbia are said to be a home to a giant sea serpent, a monster more than 40 feet long. The indigenous people of the region have long told tales of the creature, which they have named Ogopoga, or water demon. According to lore, the beast demands a blood sacrifice before it will allow anyone to cross the lake. Similarly, Flathead Lake, just across the international border in Montana, also has the same sort of monster. The Native American people believed the lake monster could whip up a terrible storm on Okanagan Lake and capsize boats unless it was given a sacrificial offering. To ensure safe passage, they would bring a chicken or a rabbit or another small animal with them. They would toss the poor chicken into the water to drown, thus appeasing the sea monster. One of the early European settlers to the area, John McDougall, once tried to cross Lake Okanagan with his team of horses, when, inexplicably, his boat began to be dragged under the waves. McDougall, his men, and his family were in danger of drowning. Suddenly he remembered the warnings and stories from local Native Americans, cutting loose several of his horses. The animals were pulled under the water by the beast, allowing McDougall and his group to escape. The Kootenai Indians of Montana, who lived on the edges of Flathead Lake, blamed the Flathead Lake monster for flooding the surrounding land and killing as much as half of the Kootenai tribe. Then we have the Piazza bird. Oh, and there it is, etched on the wall of the cliff. Isn't that interesting? The Piazza bird was a mythical creature, allegedly living in the steep cliffs along the Mississippi. According to Native American myth, the Piazza bird was quite different from the thunderbird. It was depicted as a flying dragon in ancient paintings dating back as far as 1200 AD. In the year 1673, Father Jacques Marquette wrote about the Piazza bird in the journal he kept while traveling through the area. In the journal, he claimed the creature was as big as cattle, with blood-red eyes and antlers on its head. The body was covered in scales, yet it had a human-like face. It also had a long, thin, snake-like tail. According to legend, the Piazza bird feasted on human flesh, but not fresh flesh. Rather, it circled around when Native American warriors battled enemy tribes. When the fighting had ended, the Piazza bird would swoop down to dine on the bodies of the fallen warriors. The Penobscot Indians of the East Coast told stories of a giant, menacing, mythical creature named the Kachitsiasku, or stiff-legged bear. According to folklore, the monster is huge and roughly bear-shaped, but with a much larger head and thick, unyielding legs. The legends surrounding the Kachitsiasku claimed it stalked, killed, and devoured humans. Anthropologists researching the legends of the Penobscot people noted that depictions of the Kachitsiasku looked similar to African elephants, which the Native Americans would have never seen. That led to the theory that the Native Americans discovered the skeletal remains of a prehistoric mastodon. Not knowing what the remains were, the Penobscot people developed myths surrounding the creature and its origins. Or, it actually exists. Bakwas. Like the Sasquatch, the Bakwas was a hairy wild man that lived in the forest. Unlike the Sasquatch, however, the Bakwas was a ghostly creature that passed back and forth between the human world and the ghost world. If the Bakwas came upon a human who was lost in the woods, it would offer the person some food, but it was not normal food. If the human ate it, he or she would be transformed into a Bakwas as well.